It was him and I. We were home. He was saying like that he was gonna kill himself, but he brought up that there was this other option kind of thing, where he wanted to kill my mom.
The Perfect Family's Dark Secret, a Mother's Murder. Asterisk, on August 28, 2017, police discover 6-year-old Michelle Knightrider hanging at the bottom of her staircase. It looks like suicide. But the rope mark on her chin tells a different story. This true crime documentary reveals how a seemingly perfect father convinced his own daughter to help murder her mother. Asterisk, the late August sun bathes the backyard in golden light. Michelle Knightrider laughs as she watches her youngest daughter and a friend slide down the grassy hill on giant blocks of ice. The sound of their joy fills the warm summer air. It is Saturday, August 26th, 2017, and Michelle has every reason to celebrate. Just 2 days earlier, her ex-husband, Lloyd Knightrider, failed to appear in court for his petition to gain sole custody of their 4-year-old daughter. After years of relentless legal battles, 26 separate court filings, and constant harassment through the family court system, Lloyd simply did not show up. The case was dismissed. For the first time in what feels like forever, Michelle can breathe. Her friends notice the change immediately. Rebecca Raj, one of Michelle's closest friends, sees a woman transformed. She seemed much more relaxed, Rebecca would later recall. The tension that had gripped Michelle for so many years appears to have finally released its hold. Michelle Knightrider is a brilliant woman. An English professor with a wonderful sense of humor and a sharp wit, she has dedicated her life to education and to raising her 3 daughters. Those who know her describe someone determined to create a successful life despite the obstacles thrown in her path. She homeschooled her children for years, always encouraging them to be well-spoken and educated. She has fought hard to protect them. As the ice blocks leave wet trails down the hill and her daughter's laughter echoes across the yard, Michelle does not know she has less than 48 hours to live. She does not know that her middle daughter, 9-year-old Carrie Knightrider, is about to betray her in the most horrific way imaginable. She does not know that the man she divorced 4 years ago has already set in motion a plan that will end her life. The sun sets on what will be Michelle Knightrider's last happy day. Monday, August 28, 2017, 911 dispatch receives a call at approximately 3 p.m. A family friend has arrived at Michelle Knightrider's home in Corning, New York, to pick up her 4-year-old daughter for swim practice. Something is very wrong. There's something strange happening at our friend's house, the caller reports, his voice tight with concern. I thought I saw the mother standing in the stairway, but she's motionless. Corning Police Sergeant Michael McDavid is the first to respond. The quiet community of Corning, nestled in upstate New York, is the kind of place where many residents still do not lock their doors. The Fortune 500 company Corning Glass provides stability and prosperity. This is not a place where terrible things happen. But as Sergeant McDavid approaches the front door of Michelle's home, he knows something terrible has happened here. I walked up to the front door, McDavid later explains, walking through the scene. Through these 3 panes of glass, I could see inside. I could see a female laying at the bottom of the stairs. He opens the door, a dog runs out, McDavid rushes in. What he finds stops him cold. Michelle Knightrider lies at the base of her staircase, a rope around her neck. She is cold and stiff to the touch. There is no pulse. Sergeant McDavid's first thought is suicide by hanging. The staging appears obvious, but something about the scene troubles him immediately. When Corning Police Chief David Spaulding arrives, he shares McDavid's unease. There is a rope mark on Michelle's neck as expected. But there is another mark, a horizontal ligature mark across her chin. It does not fit the suicide narrative. I didn't like that, Chief Spaulding recalls. That was unsettling. It appeared as though somebody had gone behind and thrown a rope over the neck and pulled back and down. The mark suggests violence. It suggests someone attacked Michelle from behind, using the rope to subdue her before staging the hanging. This true crime documentary case is already taking a dark turn. But there is an even more pressing concern. Michelle's 4-year-old daughter, the child at the heart of the custody battle, the girl who was supposed to be picked up for swim practice, is nowhere to be found. Obviously, the number of possible outcomes there that are bad is tremendous, Lieutenant Robert Heverly would later say. A frantic search begins. They check basements, attics, and garages. The girl has vanished. Hours pass. Then Lieutenant Heverly receives a phone call that changes everything. "Hi, my name is Carrie Knightrider," the voice on the other end says. To understand how this nightmare unfolded, we must travel back nearly 3 decades to 1989. 16-year-old Lloyd Knightrider falls for an older classmate, Michelle, at their high school. She is graduating. He is smitten. Michelle's mother, Patricia, remembers the graduation party where Michelle invites the young Lloyd. How did she feel about him? Patricia is asked years later. "Oh, she was falling in love," Patricia replies. 2 years later, in 1991, Michelle and Lloyd marry. The wedding video shows a young couple full of hope. They head off to college together. Michelle gives birth to their first daughter, then 2 years later, Carrie Knightrider arrives. A third daughter follows. The family settles in Corning, where Lloyd works as an engineer at Corning Glass. Michelle homeschools the children, pouring her energy into their education. From the outside, they appear to be the ideal family. Home videos show a devoted father doing his daughter's hair, an attentive mother teaching her children, family celebrations filled with laughter. Lloyd is charismatic and caring, always showing up at dance classes and school events. Mothers at the dance studio are rather smitten with him. But behind closed doors, something sinister is growing. Sophia Raj, who befriends Carrie Knightrider in ballet class, begins to notice troubling signs. "They were really good at putting up that front," Sophia recalls. "But over time, I saw that perception sort of started to change. Lloyd's parenting style is not just strict, it is domineering and cruel. You never knew when he would snap," Sophia explains. If he decided he was mad at one of them, he would call them over, yell front and center, have them drop to their knees in front of everyone. Sophia witnesses Lloyd slap his daughters across the face. She sees Carrie's body shake with fear when her father summons her. The psychological abuse extends to Michelle as well. He would put her down with a smile on his face, Rebecca remembers. Then, around Thanksgiving 2007, something changes dramatically. Michelle suddenly cuts ties with her parents. Her mother, Patricia, believes Lloyd is behind the estrangement. "I think that he threatened her either to harm the children or to harm her," Patricia says. Michelle later confides in Rebecca that Lloyd forced her to cut off contact. "He didn't want her to have a place to go if she wanted to leave," Rebecca explains. The isolation is complete. Lloyd has systematically cut Michelle off from her support system, controlling every aspect of the family's life. But in 2008, Lloyd himself leaves, taking a new job in New Jersey and moving away from the family. With Lloyd gone, Michelle seems to transform. She seemed like a different person, Rebecca notes. Better, much more relaxed. The divorce is finalized in 2013. Michelle moves into a new house with the girls. She starts teaching as an English professor at a local college. For the first time in years, she begins to rebuild her life. But Lloyd is not finished with her, not even close. What follows the divorce can only be described as systematic harassment through the legal system. Lloyd Knightrider files motion after motion, dragging Michelle back to court again and again. Emily Beth Jett Homer, Michelle's divorce attorney, has never seen anything like it. "There were 26 separate sets of filings post-divorce," she explains. "To have 2 or 3 is a lot. To have 26 is astounding. Each filing contains false claims against Michelle. Lloyd continuously tries to get out of child support payments, despite owing Michelle almost $6,000 a month. He fights for custody of their youngest daughter, now 14 years old. The legal battles consume Michelle's time, energy, and financial resources. It just never ended," Emily recalls. Lloyd Knightrider was relentless in using the legal system to harass Michelle. Court employees in Steuben County begin to recognize the case immediately. "I think anybody who worked in the courthouse had heard about the Knightrider case," District Attorney Marcus Baker later says. "This husband and wife were going at it nonstop. It was one of those cases that just didn't go away." But something strange happens in late August 2017. After years of aggressive litigation, Lloyd Knightrider does not show up for his petition for sole custody. He does not withdraw the petition. He does not ask for an adjournment. He does not answer the court's phone calls or emails. Nothing. "It was very unusual," Emily says. "It was unthinkable, really." Michelle is shocked but relieved. She texts friends about the dismissal. That Saturday, she celebrates with friends and her daughters, sliding on ice blocks down the grassy hill. She has no idea that Lloyd's absence from court is part of a much darker plan. Because on that same Saturday, August 26, Lloyd Knightrider is not in his home in New Jersey. He is in Rochester, New York, just 100 miles from Corning, helping his daughter Carrie move into her college apartment, and he has brought with him a rope. On Monday afternoon, hours after Michelle Knightrider's body is discovered, Lieutenant Robert Heverly finally gets the call he has been waiting for. It is 9-year-old Carrie Knightrider, Michelle's middle daughter, calling from Rochester. My friends called me earlier today and told me about my mom, Carrie says, her voice breaking. She called and told me that my mom hung herself. Carrie tells Heverly that her 4-year-old sister is safe in her Rochester apartment, nearly 100 miles away. But the story Carrie tells about how they got there does not make sense. According to Carrie, she drove back to Corning late Saturday night to spend one last night in her childhood bedroom. When she arrived, her mother started freaking out, accusing Carrie of taking her father's side in the custody battles. The argument woke the 4-year-old. Concerned for her younger sister's safety, Carrie says she took the girl and drove back to Rochester, leaving their mother alone and alive in the house. The timeline troubles investigators. Why would Michelle be furious on the same day she was celebrating her court victory? Why would she rage at Carrie when, by all accounts, she was happy and relaxed just hours before? Those who know Michelle best find the suicide theory impossible to believe. I never believed it, says her friend. She was determined to have a successful life, and she did. She had a great job. It was not the place in her life where she would have committed suicide. The medical examiner's report only deepens the mystery. Instead of ruling the death a suicide or a homicide, the examiner concludes the cause is undetermined. Patricia, Michelle's mother, does not need an autopsy to tell her what happened. I did not believe she killed herself, Patricia states firmly. I'm thinking it's more than likely Lloyd killed her, but I couldn't figure out how because he had an alibi. And what an alibi it is. Lloyd Knightrider was more than 2,500 miles away in California for a job interview when police discovered Michelle's body. Or was he? Investigators begin to dig into Lloyd Knightrider's movements on the weekend of the murder. His story, which matches Carrie's account perfectly, seems airtight. He helped Carrie move into her Rochester apartment on Saturday, August 26th. He checked into the Microtel Hotel that evening. Hotel security cameras confirm his arrival. The parking lot video shows Carrie visiting her father at the hotel. Later that evening, Lloyd walks Carrie to her car. Then, according to Lloyd, he returns to his hotel room and stays there all night. The next morning, Sunday, he has breakfast with both Carrie and her younger sister at the hotel before flying to California for his job interview. When the family notifies him of Michelle's death, he flies back east. Lloyd's cell phone records corroborate the story. The phone remains at the hotel all night Saturday. But when investigators examine the hotel's security footage more carefully, they discover something shocking. The video shows Lloyd walking Carrie to her car Saturday evening. But then Lloyd gets into the car with Carrie, the car drives away, and the video does not show Lloyd returning to the hotel that night. We don't see Lloyd all night long, Chief Spaulding explains, reviewing the footage. Here it is, 6:30 inches the morning, and here he comes onto the camera. He's walking across the parking lot to his vehicle. He still appears to be wearing the same clothes that he had on the night before. Lloyd's story is that he stayed at the hotel room all night. The video evidence says no, he did not. Where was Lloyd Knightrider while his phone sat in a hotel room 100 miles from Corning? The answer seems obvious. He was in Corning murdering his ex-wife. Investigators discover more damning information. Lloyd is drowning in debt, more than $100,000 on credit cards. He is paying Michelle almost $6,000 a month in child support and maintenance. After Michelle's death, Lloyd tries to collect on her life insurance policy for a payout of $260,000. And there is something else. Within 36 hours of Michelle's death, Lloyd shows up at Steuben County Family Court. His purpose? To turn off his child support and maintenance payments. That's the first place he went when he had heard his ex-wife had committed suicide, Emily, Michelle's attorney, recalls with disgust. Police decide to take an unprecedented step for this small community. They obtain wiretaps for both Lloyd and Carrie's phones. Almost 2.5 months pass. It is mid-November 2017. Police have been listening to Lloyd and Carrie's phone conversations, but the two are being careful. Not much is being said that helps the investigation. So investigators decide to tickle the wire, a technique often used in drug cases. An investigator calls Carrie, saying they have more questions and want her to come in for another interview. The goal is simple: see how Lloyd and Carrie react. "Hi, is this Carrie?" the investigator asks. "Yes, this is she," Carrie replies. The investigator explains he wants to meet with her, perhaps on Monday. Carrie agrees, but as soon as she hangs up, she immediately calls her father. "What exactly did you tell him?" Lloyd asks. "I don't know," Carrie responds, her voice uncertain. Lloyd tries to reassure her, suggesting it is probably just routine, but then he says something that removes all doubt for investigators. But I don't think I want you talking to him, Lloyd instructs. He tells Carrie to lie, to say she has a counseling appointment back in New Jersey. Tell him this has been really hard on me, Lloyd coaches. Then he asks, "Could you cry?" "I might," Carrie replies. Lloyd continues, "God, it would be nice if this was just over." "That would be the dream," Carrie agrees. Chief Spaulding, listening to the recording, explains the significance. Why lie? Why not just go sit down with the investigator, spend 20 minutes, and tell the same story you already have? The wiretap reveals something even more chilling. At one point, Lloyd jokes about whether police would simply arrest Carrie if the situation were serious. "If there's anything more serious, I guess you have people coming after me anyways, right?" Carrie asks nervously. Lloyd laughs. "Yeah, he wouldn't ask you to come walk in his front door. He'd say, 'I have a warrant,' so it can't be that." The recordings make clear that both Lloyd and Carrie know they are hiding something, but police need more. They need physical evidence, they need a murder weapon. Most importantly, they need to prove definitively that Michelle was murdered. District Attorney Marcus Baker makes a crucial decision. He asks a private forensic pathologist to review all the evidence from the original autopsy. There is no body to examine because Lloyd had Michelle's remains cremated shortly after her death. But the pathologist can review photographs and documentation. The pathologist studies the images carefully. He sees the rope mark on Michelle's neck from the hanging. He sees the suspicious ligature mark on her chin. He notes the petechial hemorrhaging in her eyes, tiny burst blood vessels that indicate strangulation. After reviewing everything in silence, the pathologist looks up and delivers his conclusion. This is a homicide. Michelle Knightrider was strangled to death before being staged to look like a suicide. Now police are ready to move. On January 24th, 2018, 5 months after Michelle's death, investigators make their play. 2 detectives show up at Lloyd's office in New Jersey. At the same time, 2 state police troopers find Carrie at her college internship in Syracuse. "Was this your Hail Mary pass?" Baker is asked later. "Yeah, that's what we considered game day," he confirms. The investigators confront Lloyd at his office, telling him the medical examiner has ruled Michelle's death a homicide. Lloyd maintains his innocence, insisting he was in Rochester all night Saturday. Surprisingly, he agrees to take a polygraph test. The investigators give him directions to a police station in New Jersey, where an examiner is waiting. Lloyd appears confident. He seems certain he can beat this. But 200 miles away in Syracuse, everything is falling apart. Carrie cracks almost immediately. "My dad came down with me Saturday night," she whispers to the investigators. There it is. The confession comes out in barely audible words on the police audio recording. Carrie admits her father went to her mother's house with her that night. She helped him get inside undetected. The investigators take Carrie to a police station to get the full story on video. What emerges is a true crime documentary nightmare beyond imagination. According to Carrie's confession, the plan began a week before the murder. Lloyd came to her with an impossible choice. He claimed he could not afford to pay Michelle anymore. He was drowning in debt. He had no way out. Basically, he was going to kill himself, Carrie tells investigators, her voice shaking. But Lloyd presented an alternative. Or, as he put it, there is this way to make it so he wouldn't kill himself. Which was killing my mom, Carrie says. Lloyd laid out his plan in detail. They would make it look like suicide. He would put something over Michelle's mouth to keep her quiet, then put a rope around her neck and hang her from the staircase banister. On Saturday night, August 26th, the plan went into motion. After Lloyd helped Carrie move into her Rochester apartment and checked into the hotel, he left his phone in the room and got into Carrie's car. Together, they drove the 100 miles to Corning. Carrie used her key to let them into the house quietly. Her 4-year-old sister was asleep in the living room. Michelle was upstairs. "She saw my dad come in," Carrie recalls, "and then they started arguing. So he went upstairs, and they were arguing in her room." The commotion woke the 4-year-old. Carrie took her younger sister outside to the car, trying to shield her from what was happening inside. "I was freaking out," Carrie says. "I didn't know what's going on. I was like, oh my God." Upstairs, Michelle was fighting for her life. She was yelling, and she was like, "Why? Why?" Carrie recounts. Then the house went silent. When the investigators press Carrie about what she saw next, she finally admits the full horror. "I saw her," Carrie whispers. "When you saw her, was she still alive?" the investigator asks. "No," Carrie replies. But Carrie's involvement did not end there. In a later interview, she reveals an even more disturbing detail. After Lloyd strangled Michelle, he needed help staging the scene. He opened the door. My mom was laying on the floor, Carrie says, her voice barely audible. He said he needed my help lifting her. Together, father and daughter dragged Michelle's body to the staircase. We dragged her around the corner and he tied the rope to one prong of the banister and lifted her up and put her over the side. Carrie laid her hands on her mother's cold, dead body and helped her father create the illusion of suicide. After staging the scene, Lloyd sneaked out the back of the house and climbed into the rear hatch of Carrie's car. According to Carrie, her 4-year-old sister, sitting in the front seat, never knew her father was hiding in the back. They drove back to Rochester, arriving at the hotel around 6:30 a.m. Sunday morning. The security camera captures Lloyd walking across the parking lot in the same clothes from the night before. Later that morning, Carrie and her sister joined Lloyd for breakfast at the hotel, both girls keeping the terrible secret. Lloyd then flew to California for his job interview, establishing his alibi while Michelle's body lay undiscovered in Corning. But where is Lloyd now? He never showed up for that polygraph test. Police have lost him. Fortunately, Lloyd still has his cell phone, and police are still monitoring it. They traced the signal to downtown Princeton, New Jersey, to a municipal parking structure. When officers arrive, they find Lloyd on the roof of the 5-story garage, standing on the ledge. He's on the ledge, comes the radio call. "Do you have live video of this up there?" the dispatcher asks. Lloyd is threatening to jump, to commit suicide, just as he had threatened to do if Carrie did not help him murder Michelle. For 2 hours, Lloyd keeps police at bay, teetering on the edge of the building. Then, when Lloyd turns his back, officers make their move. A New Jersey state trooper who played football sprints forward and tackles Lloyd, pulling him back from the edge. One in custody, the radio crackles. Lloyd Knightrider is arrested and charged with first-degree murder in the death of his ex-wife, Michelle Knightrider. Carrie is charged with second-degree murder for her role in helping her father gain access to the house and staging the crime scene. The small community of Corning is shocked. District Attorney Marcus Baker faces one of the most challenging cases of his career. "We just don't have cases like this, where this level of pervasive evil trickles through an entire life and then ends in such a horrific event," Baker says. As preparations for trial begin, Baker knows his odds of convicting Lloyd will greatly increase if Carrie testifies against her father. He offers her a deal: plead guilty and cooperate, facing 15 years to life, or refuse to cooperate and face 25 years to life. After spending weeks in a jail cell, Carrie agrees to testify and plead guilty, but Baker still needs physical evidence linking Lloyd to the murder. He orders Michelle's clothing re-examined by state police forensics, looking for touch DNA. The results are damning. Lloyd's DNA is found on Michelle's pajamas, the ones she was wearing the night she was murdered. 2 weeks before trial, Baker makes Lloyd a final offer: plead guilty to first-degree murder and face 25 years to life, with the possibility of life without parole. Surprisingly, Lloyd accepts. When Lloyd stands before the judge to allocute, to formally admit his guilt and describe his crimes, he reveals himself completely. Even in confession, he cannot accept full responsibility. He starts by blaming Michelle, claiming he believes she might hurt their children. That would be Lloyd. "Blame everybody else. Blame the victim," Baker says. But then he sort of said, "But that doesn't matter. I have no excuse. Murder is wrong." Lloyd goes through his confession line by line, admitting he planned and carried out the homicide. Critically, he admits he manipulated Carrie into helping him. The DA's theory is vindicated. Lloyd brainwashed his daughter through years of parental alienation, systematically turning her against her mother until murder seemed acceptable. Baker explains, "I don't think it's causing dislike. That's not what parental alienation is. It causes them to absolutely devalue them as people." The evidence of this brainwashing is extensive. 2 years before Michelle's death, she accidentally bumped Carrie with her car while backing out of the driveway during an argument. Lloyd convinced Carrie that Michelle had tried to run her over. Carrie even called police on her mother, though the charges did not stick. The idea took root. Her mother was dangerous, capable of trying to kill her. When Lloyd later presented Carrie with his ultimatum, suicide or murder, she felt she had no choice. Her father, whom she loved and depended on, would die unless she helped him. Her mother, whom she had been taught to fear and devalue, was the obstacle. If you can brainwash your daughter into thinking that her inching out of the driveway was your mother trying to run you over, then she tried to kill you, so it's okay for you to help try to kill her, Baker explains. Patricia, Michelle's mother, writes a powerful victim impact statement. She reads parts of it, her voice strong despite her grief. "Lloyd abused and tortured my daughter for 25 years. He coerced his own daughter into helping him kill her mother. Lloyd should never be given the opportunity to harm anyone again. Please, Your Honor, give him life without parole." The judge agrees. Lloyd Knightrider receives life in prison without the possibility of parole. He will die behind bars. I'm so overjoyed. I'm so happy, Patricia says after the sentencing. It's life without parole and Michelle got justice. But the question of Carrie's punishment remains. She originally pled guilty to second-degree murder, facing 15 years in prison. But the DA supports allowing her to plead guilty to a lesser charge, second-degree manslaughter. Patricia again writes to the judge, this time seeking mercy for her granddaughter. I always ask myself, what would Michelle want me to do? I do not believe my daughter would want a long prison sentence for her daughter. She would want her to eventually lead a happy life. The judge is lenient, sentencing Carrie to just 1 to 3 years in state prison. It is a controversial decision in this true crime documentary case. Some believe Carrie got away with murder. Others see her as Lloyd's final victim. That's a hard one, Patricia admits. I don't believe she should go to prison. I think that she needs psychiatric help. I think she needs a lot of therapy. But District Attorney Baker disagrees. She has to pay a price. She has to serve a sentence. I think for her own sanity, she needs to serve some penance. On January 16, 2020, Carrie Knightrider is released from prison on parole after serving her minimum sentence. She walks free after helping murder her mother, after laying her hands on Michelle's cold, dead body and staging her hanging. The 3 Knightrider daughters must now navigate life without their mother, their family shattered by their father's evil and manipulation. Patricia hopes to maintain relationships with her granddaughters, to tell them about Michelle and how much she loved them. She knew that she had lost them, the 2 oldest, and she wanted them to be happy, Patricia says. She hoped that someday they would realize what was done and come back to her and see how hard she fought for them to have a good life. Michelle fought indeed. For 25 years, she endured abuse. For years after her divorce, she endured harassment through the legal system. She fought for her children's well-being and safety. She fought to build a successful life as an educator, to maintain her dignity and independence. She wanted to live a beautiful life, to have a beautiful life, and for them to be happy, Patricia says. But Lloyd Knightrider could not allow it. Rather than let Michelle live free and happy, rather than pay the support he owed, rather than let her win even one battle, he chose to end her life. And he corrupted his own daughter's soul in the process, making her complicit in matricide. This true crime documentary case stands as a stark reminder of how domestic abuse extends beyond physical violence. Lloyd's abuse was psychological, systematic, and ultimately lethal. He isolated Michelle from her family. He terrorized his children. He weaponized the legal system. And when all else failed, when Michelle finally seemed to have escaped his control, he murdered her and framed it as suicide. The case also illuminates the dark phenomenon of parental alienation, how one parent can poison a child's mind against the other parent. Lloyd spent years teaching his daughters to devalue, fear, and ultimately hate their mother. By the time he asked Carrie to help him commit murder, he had so thoroughly warped her reality that she saw no other choice. We just don't have cases like this where this level of pervasive evil trickles through an entire life and then ends in such a horrific event. District Attorney Marcus Baker reflects, in Corning, New York, in that house where Michelle once taught her daughters and built her life, the staircase remains. The banister where her body hung, where her daughter helped stage her death, stands as silent testimony to the horror that unfolded there. Michelle's friends and family struggle with the question that haunts all true crime documentary stories. Could this have been prevented? The warning signs were there. The abuse was witnessed by friends. The harassment through family court was documented in 26 separate filings. Michelle herself accused Lloyd of parental alienation in court documents filed before her death. But the system failed Michelle. Courts continued to grant Lloyd access and opportunities to torment her. No one stopped him. No one could imagine he would go this far. Now Lloyd sits in prison for life, his charm and charisma finally recognized for what they were, the tools of a manipulator and murderer. Carrie walks free but must live with the knowledge that she helped kill the woman who gave her life. The youngest daughter must process the trauma of losing her mother and learning her father and sister were responsible. And Patricia, Michelle's mother, keeps her daughter's memory alive. She tells her granddaughters stories about Michelle's wit, her intelligence, her love for her children, her determination to create beauty in life despite the darkness Lloyd brought. She wanted a beautiful life, Patricia says, her voice breaking but strong. She fought so hard for that. She deserved that. Michelle Knightrider deserved to grow old. She deserved to see her daughters graduate college, get married, have children of their own. She deserved to write more books, teach more students, laugh with more friends. She deserved justice from the courts that repeatedly failed to protect her from her abuser. Instead, on August 28, 2017, 2 days after sliding down a grassy hill on blocks of ice with her daughters, Michelle's life ended at the hands of the man who promised to love her, aided by the daughter she raised and loved with all her heart. This is the story the 48 Hours team uncovered, a true crime documentary that reveals how evil can hide behind a perfect facade, how abuse can masquerade as concern, how murder can be disguised as suicide. It is a story that demands we pay attention to the warning signs, that we believe victims of domestic abuse, that we protect children from manipulation and alienation. It is Michelle Knightrider's story, and she deserves to be remembered not as a victim hanging from a staircase, but as the brilliant, loving, determined woman she was, the woman who fought until the very end for her children and for the beautiful life she deserved. Asterisk, asterisk, the case file closes, but Michelle's memory endures. Asterisk, asterisk,